Welcome back to another edition of Buy Low Fantasy Sports with Mitch and Bam on 1490 Newstalk 1077 FM. I'm Mitch. He's Bam. Bam, say hello.
Hey.
Just want to say that we're thankful to be here. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in.
Thanks a lot.
Make sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube at Buy Low Fantasy Sports, and as well Twitter at Buy Low FS. Now, with that out of the way, let's get this show kicked off.
Kick it off. Yeah, we got week 2. Hopefully everyone was profitable last week, starting off the winning record. If not, don't panic. We'll see what week 2 holds in store.
Let's hop into some of the games we want to talk about this week for week 2. Bam, you want to kick us off with the Cardinals at the Ravens?
Yes, I do. So we got a 47-point total here. The Ravens are a 13-point home favorite.
Nice.
The Ravens annihilated the Dolphins last week with Lamar Jackson leading the way. You got this Cardinals pass funnel defense. What a pass funnel is, they're good against the run, bad against the pass. So I think if you're hesitant to play Lamar Jackson again, go ahead and do it here. DFS, season long, put him in.
Yes.
Lamar Jackson, Mandrews, who that's we lovingly call Mark Andrews, and slot wide receiver Snead and tight end Hurst are the guys we kind of want to target here because this Cardinals defense it gives up a lot of production over the middle. So those are the guys we kind of look at. So prioritize Mandrews, obviously, if you have him. And if you need a wide receiver or a tight end, grab Snead or Hurst.
Yeah, and just remember, too, that the Cardinals defense is still missing. They played pretty decent against the Lions wide receivers, but they're still missing some secondary pieces. So there is some production that they'll give up, especially like Bam mentioned. They funnel it all to the inside.
Right. Another thing to remember, too, both of these offenses run fast-paced, up-tempo. So there should be a ton of play volume here. So both teams could run upwards of 65, 70 plays. That's a lot of offensive possibility here.
Yeah, and we kind of saw last week against the Lions, the Cardinals ran. They just basically gassed the Lions defense. They ran so many plays because, they didn't have anything going the first 2.5 quarters into about halfway through the third quarter. They didn't have anything going. And so I'm curious if that was more the Lions kind of, getting tired, or if the Cardinals just kind of improved and kind of fell in a rhythm there about halfway through the third quarter. So it'll be interesting to watch how the Cardinals, if they use that same tactic against Baltimore, and if the Ravens get tired like that about halfway through the third quarter into the fourth quarter.
Right, and the Ravens are pretty banged up in the secondary too. The Ravens' primary slot corner, Taven Young, was injured in the preseason. And then you also got cornerback Jimmy Smith is out. He's an outside guy, which means the other slot corner, Humphrey, who was limited in practice all week himself, has to move the outside. So you got 2 fourth and fifth string corners playing inside slot against this 4 wide receiver offense. So I like the Cardinals' 2 slot wide receivers, Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald. They're both in play, could get some garbage time production. Kirk is the real sleeper here. He had a lot of volume last week, didn't produce. This could be a good pop game for him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of experts just aren't making a big enough deal about Jimmy Smith being out. This has been one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL over the past couple years. So this is a big deal to me that Jimmy Smith is out. So definitely something to watch, those wide receivers for the Arizona
They have to
Cardinals.
adjust their whole secondary, the Ravens do.
All right, moving on.
Chargers at the Lions. We got a 47-point total here. The Chargers are a 1.5 road favorite. So the Chargers, unfortunately, are the walking dead right now. you got Hunter Henry's out with a knee injury, broke his kneecap somehow.
Right.
Mike Williams.
He's out 6 to 8 weeks.
He's out a while.
And they're saying that that's an optimistic timeline, that the IR designation is actually much more likely. But they're giving a 6 to 8 week timeline right now with that injury.
Yeah, that's a while. And then wide receiver Mike Williams is a game time decision. So make sure you're leading up to game time here. You're watching those injury reports. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Chargers got 5 defensive starters on the injury report too. but they should all play. So we got the Walking Dead here.
Yes.
So I think the way to look at this game on offense, I think with all these injuries, I think the offense will be highly concentrated onto Eckler in the backfield and wide receiver Keenan Allen. I don't think this is a good spot for either, though, per se, because Lions have a very good run defense ever since they traded for Snacks Harrison last year. And Keenan Allen struggles against man coverage, and that's what Detroit runs most of the time, and he'll probably be matched up on Darius Slay in shadow coverage.
Yeah.
So Travis Benjamin is a guy who's normally the fourth receiver. He'll come in as probably the second receiver here. He's got some sleeper appeal if you're desperate for a wide receiver this week. Maybe some exposure on DFS, but I don't think I'll get there.
Yeah. And I think it's important, too, to note that Matt Stafford put up some pretty decent stats last week. Of course, this was aided by the fact that they went into overtime. The Cardinals had that fast-paced offense. Like I said, they couldn't get anything going in the first half, and so they were really running like 3 and out, but they were doing it super fast. So Stafford had a lot more opportunity. So I don't think he'll have that same kind of production against the Los Angeles Chargers here. So just something to keep in mind if you're considering Stafford or any of the other Lions weapons. I just don't think they put up the type of numbers they did last week.
I don't think so either, and a big reason for that. Last week we saw Kerryon Johnson get a good 15 touches there. Didn't do a whole lot against the Cardinals' pass funnel defense where they were loading the box against him. Here it's a different story. We saw what Marlon Mack did last week to the Chargers. They're happy to give up rushing production, and I think the Lions are happy to take it here. So I think with all these Chargers injuries, I think Kerryon Johnson and the Lions defense, very contrarian, low-owned stack here. So if you want to stream a defense, grab the Lions. If you're worried about Kerryon Johnson after week 1, play him. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And something, too, that you've explained to me time and time again is the west to east narrative in those 1 p.m. games. Do you want to go ahead? We have some time here on this matchup. Do you want to go ahead and explain that to our listeners so that they can kind of get that same advantage that we've kind of taken advantage of over the past couple years?
For sure. So teams that are based out of the West Coast, when they travel east to play a 1 o'clock game, it's 10 a.m. their time. And football players are creatures of habit. So they eat at the same time, they work out at the same time, they study film at the same time, all that stuff. So this is really disruptive to their schedule. It's something that West Coast teams have been trying to change for years, but unfortunately haven't been able to do it. So what you'll see is some of the better coach teams, it won't affect so much. For example, the 49ers going to play the Bengals this week. We'll talk about that matchup in a bit, but they're a well-coached team. Probably won't affect them as bad. But the Chargers, kind of a middle-of-the-road coaching-wise, so this might affect them some, might affect their performance, especially on offense and obviously on defense too.
Right, yeah, it just messes up their timing. They seem to be, they kind of go out and party Saturday night, right? And they're in a new city and all that, and so 10 o'clock Sunday morning, they're hurting.
Yeah, speaking with that, the hurting from going out and that west to east time zone change, and then with all these injuries, Lions defense, really good play here.
Yep. I like the Lions defense a lot this week, especially in DFS. But
oh yeah.
All right, moving on. Next game we have on our slate is the Colts at the Titans.
Right, we got a 44-point total here, kind of low, and the Titans are a home favorite by 3, so this is basically a pick 'em. So the Colts last week took the Chargers to overtime. The Titans just dismantled the overrated Browns last week. So looking at this matchup, I kind of like Corey Davis here. He flopped last week when he was getting shadowed by Denzel Ward, who's a very good corner.
Right.
And Corey Davis is always kind of like that guy who does well when you least expect him to. So if you're looking to start a wide receiver this week, if he's out on waivers, pick him up, or if he's on your bench, you're not sure what to do at wide receiver, go ahead and plug him in. I think he does well here.
Yeah, and I think, A.J. Brown did really well last week, rookie wide receiver for the Titans. He did really well, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Corey Davis was being blanketed by Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward's, he's one of the top corners in the NFL. And so I think Corey Davis being blanketed there, Mariota had to go somewhere with the ball, and A.J. Brown was just a beneficiary of that. I think I know it'll be very tempting to try to plug him in again thinking that he's going to replicate his 100-yard performance from last week. I don't think he does it here because Corey Davis is going to get a little more run.
Right, I think that's correct there. Another guy I'm looking at is Eric Ebron. He dropped a touchdown last week. Should see an increase in volume here in a road matchup. And we've seen the Titans be a little bit vulnerable to tight ends over the years. They gave up a touchdown last week to Njoku.
Yep.
So I think Ebron's another low-owned contrarian guy maybe you're worried about because he didn't do well in week 1. Play him here. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And just like you and I have talked about in previous shows on youtube.com/BuyLowFantasySports, little shameless plug there.
Nice plug. Nice.
We have talked about Jacoby Brissett being a huge tight end targeter. He favors targeting tight ends. And so Ebron, I think, is going to be the beneficiary of that this week.
Yes.
So do you have any interest in either of the running backs? The Colts have a good defense. The Titans have a good defense. You have any interest in Marlon Mack or Derrick Henry in this game?
I do. Last week, we were on both of these guys one to more of a degree than the other.
Yep.
And Colts have a really good offensive line, and they kind of, with Brissett taking over at quarterback, they fed Marlon Mack on the road last week, even when they were behind. So he got 20, 25 touches, and it's reasonable to expect him to get that here. Titans might not be the best defense to run on, but he's going to get the volume. Same thing with Derrick Henry. On the road, they were a little bit behind the first quarter. They kept feeding him. So if these two running backs get this kind of volume, I'm always interested.
Yeah. And one thing that was kind of interesting to me is all offseason I kept hearing when I was doing research on Indianapolis Colts, Marlon Mack, was that all the experts expected Hines to get all the run on passing down situations. Mack would only be a runner. That's what all the experts said. Last week, Mack ran 21 routes. So they're wanting him to be their feature back.
Yeah, so even if he doesn't get the carries, there's a chance that he gets some targets here. So he'll still get that volume.
Yep, exactly. All right, anything else on this game?
Moving on.
All right, 49ers at the Bengals.
We've got a 45-point total here that's middle of the road. Bengals are a 2-point home favorite, which really means the Niners are a 1-point road favorite. Tricky.
Indeed.
So this is expected to be the third highest pace game based upon week 1. What we mean by pace is the play volume. We talked about a little bit with the Ravens and the Cardinals. So it's really a lot of plays run here, which is good for the offense. Could also be good for the defenses too.
Yep.
On the injury front, Tevin Coleman's out. So you got Breida and Colonel Mostert there. He's going to be in the observatory with the candlestick.
Yeah.
They're going to split the touch. Breida and Mostert are going to split the touches. Breida's going to get 60%. Colonel Mostert's going to get 40%. So I don't know if you want to play if either one of those guys.
Breida is going to be he's going to check in and out of the game 6 or 7 times. So I think if I'm owning one of these running backs, I'm playing Mostert over Breida.
So keeping it going here, both defenses surprisingly looked pretty good last week, really good.
Yeah.
I especially like this matchup with the 49ers front 7 and this kind of porous Bengals offensive line. The Seahawks lost a lot of pieces on their defensive line last week. Some guys injured, some guys suspended, some guys brand new to the team. But they were still able to get good pressure on Dalton. I think the 49ers front 7 is pretty healthy here. Even though they're on the road and they're doing that west to east travel, I think this is a good spot to go back to 49ers defense after we saw them play pretty well on the road in Tampa last week.
Yep. I wonder how much of that, though, was Tampa Bay's offense being out of sync versus the Niners' defense. Don't get me wrong. I think the Niners' defense is very talented. I just don't think we'll see those kind of numbers. Yeah, I don't think we'll see 3 interceptions being thrown here.
Right, but what helps interceptions is a really good pass rush. So I think they'll be able to get the pass rush. So maybe not have that big spike score like last week, but they're definitely in play here.
Gotcha.
And then if Joe Mixon is ruled out last minute, it looks like he's going to play, but always check those injury news leading up to kickoff. Gio Bernard is his backup, and he's a great play here. He'll get plenty of checkdowns. He's a fast, shifty type guy. So if you're someone that owns Mixon and season long, make sure you go pick up Gio just in case you can make that last minute swap.
Yeah, exactly. He does have a little bit of appeal too. He had a pretty good run there last week. I think he was in on 35%, 38% of the snaps anyways, even with Mixon being in. So Gio has a little bit of flex appeal as well, especially in passing situations. Maybe if the game script has the Bengals down, Gio may be a guy that's worth flexing anyways.
Or if they're getting a lot of pass rush, could be a lot of screens and swing routes to Gio.
Yes, exactly. And they didn't pay him for nothing. They just renewed his contract, and he's making $4 or $5 million a year. So they didn't pay him for nothing, right? So I expect Gio to have more usage as the season goes on.
Agree there. So next game, we got the Jaguars at the Texans. Take us away here, Mitch.
All right, this game has a 43 point implied total, with the Texans being favored by 7.5.
Ooh.
So the big news that came out of the Jaguars Week 1 game versus the Kansas City Chiefs was that Nick Foles has a broken collarbone, had to have surgery. He's placed on IR, out at least 12 weeks. And they had this rookie quarterback by the name of Gardner Flint Minshew.
Nice.
Drafted in the 6th round. Now, this guy I fell in love with as soon as he stepped on the field. He was 22 of 25 passing. I could go on about this guy for forever. He's got such a fabulous mustache.
It's great. It's powerful.
That thing, I mean, he doesn't even need an offensive line. He's got that mustache. He's good. He's not getting sacked, right? But then something happened on social media during this week, and one of the beat writers asked Minshew, what's it like? Are you nervous about being named the starter for Week 2? And his reply, I don't think could have been any more awesome. He says, I don't scratch my head unless it itches, and I don't dance unless I hear some music. I will not be intimidated. That's just the way it is. Let's go work.
That's funny.
This dude,
you gotta like a guy with that kind of confidence.
Yeah, right. I don't expect that out of a rookie, making his starting debut. He's just awesome. Now, in that game against Kansas City, after he came in, he targeted D.D. Westbrook 6 times, Leonard Fournette 5 times, Chris Conley 5 times, and OCD, as we call him, Coach Dillafippiolino. I can never say his name.
The play caller.
He loves DJ Shark. He's been raving about his work ethic all week coming out of practice. So if I'm targeting anybody this week, a lone guy, right, for DFS, lone guy, low price, he's in the 6,000s on FanDuel. Minshew's a guy. So, and then, of course, with all these targets, he spread it out pretty evenly. Of course, my love for Dede has not changed any.
Yeah, he flopped last week.
He did a little bit, but touchdown saved his production there near the end of the game. So not bad. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to this game?
I do. So on the Jaguars defense side, or I'll say it British style, the Jaguars. Cornerback Jalen Ramsey is going to be on DeAndre Hopkins. That's a really good matchup to watch. Don't think it probably limits DeAndre Hopkins' upside some, but it'll be fun to watch. So make sure you watch out for that one.
Yeah.
On this other side of the field, Jaguars quarterback AJ Bouye is likely out. Hasn't been ruled out completely, so just make sure it looks like he's a game time decision. So make sure you're checking that injury report. And they have a rookie free safety who just was made a fool last week by Sammy Watkins. So yes. I think with that, all that being said, Will Fuller is a top play here at his price and a guy who has that deep threat upside we like. So play Dede, play Fuller, and then if you don't want to touch this game at all, either defense is in play here because of the bad offensive lines.
Sure. All right, next game, Vikings at the Packers.
Got a 45-point total here. Packers favored by 3. This is going to be a really slow-paced game based upon what we saw in Week 1, but you never know. So, but temper expectations here. These are looking like 2 pretty good defenses. So I think this is a game that has a lot of more questions than answers. So, question one, has the Packers offense gotten up to speed yet, or are we going to see another substandard performance against a really good Vikings defense? Another question, what will the Vikings passing game do against this revamped Packers defense that looked real good week one?
Right.
So I think in this game, just play your studs, hope for the best. And I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Kyle Rudolph have some sleeper appeal here. Other than that, I don't think I want much of this game.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, you got your studs, right? Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Devontae Adams, Diggs, Thielen. Those guys you have to play. But past that, I don't want a lot of it either.
Right, yeah.
All right. Cowboys at the Redskins.
Got a 46-point total here. The Cowboys are 4.5-point road favorites. And I think the way to attack this game or dissect it depends on how much run you think Zeke is going to get. He only played 50% of the snaps in week one after his holdout. You could say that it's because they were blowing them out, but head coach Jason Garrett said not to expect a full workload from Zeke. So what does that mean? Does that mean 65% of the snaps? Does that mean 75? Who knows? So you got to make a projection here, make a stand. So that'll tell you what to do with the rest of this game.
Yeah. I think these two teams usually play each other very tough. It's a division game, right? And
right.
Washington always gets up for division games. We saw
they
that
hate
last
each
week.
Other.
Yeah. We saw that last week against the Eagles. I mean, Washington was right there in it. I fully expected the Eagles to blow them out, not thinking about the fact that it was a division game. So the Redskins, division game, I think personally that Zeke is going to get much more than the 50% of the snaps that he got in week one now that he's reacclimating to his teammates. But there is that great unknown because you do have to take Jason Garrett for his word when he says that he's not going to get a full workload. So, yeah, I'm not sure there.
But we are sure that Dak, Prescott, Amari Cooper, Mike Gallup are all playable here. The Washington Redskins secondary looks gross.
Yes.
They got lit up real bad last week.
Yes.
So I think all three of those are in play. And then running back, the juice is loose, is out. He's placed on IR, injured reserve. So is this return of all-day Adrian Peterson? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so I think you have plenty of narratives here, right? Adrian Peterson, of course, was a healthy and active last week. So there is, of course, the whole, it's his first time ever being a healthy inactive in his NFL career. You have a 34-year-old running back, though, playing against a really good, really fast Dallas defense. So it is going to be one of those things that I'm monitoring. I'm probably picking him up for season long. I'm not playing him in DFS, but I'm picking him up and kind of seeing how he responds to being.
So what you're saying is he's going to rush for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
All right, let's catch the news from 1490 Newstalk 107.7 FM. And when we return, we're going to continue our slate walk talking fantasy production that we expect to see today.
Yeehaw.
Take her away. Welcome back to Buy Low Fantasy Sports here on 1490 News Talk 107.7.
Welcome back.
We're going to continue our slate walk now, diving in first with the Seahawks at the Steelers. Bam, you want to take it away?
Sure thing. We got a 46.5-point total here. Steelers favored by 4 at home. So I think this game, when we start diagnosing it, you got to look at first the Seahawks offensive line. They looked downright offensive versus the Bengals. Get it? Offensive line. Nice. And the Seahawks are also 1-8, 1 win and 8 losses in their last 9 road openers. So this is looking like maybe liking the Steelers a bit here. And then on the Seahawks side of the ball, I kind of like Tyler Lockett. He ran 67% of his routes from the slot last week. He also ran a lot from the slot last year. And for some reason, the Steelers seem content on letting linebackers cover wide receivers in the slot. I don't know why. You can, if you think back to that Chargers Steelers game last year where Keenan Allen went nuts, he was running against linebackers all game. So I don't know. It depends on what you think the Steelers do here. So I like Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, and the Patriots just destroyed the Steelers last week on Sunday Night Football, and yeah, they did it 90% of their passing damage from the slot. Josh Gordon was lined up on the slot on his big touchdown reception. Same with Dorsett with his couple touchdowns, all running from the slot.
For sure. I also think this is a big bounce back spot for Ben, Juju Smith-Schuster, Dante Moncrief, James Washington. The Seahawks secondary looked pretty bad last week, and they were at home, so now they're on the road. And especially James Washington's got some real sleeper appeal here, I think, because he can get loose down the field like we saw Ross did last week against the Seahawks. So he's got that deep speed.
Yeah, so and something can be said about those home road splits of Big Ben going back 7, 8, 9 years. Big Ben has always produced better at home rather than on the road.
Right.
Going back even as far as 2017, I can't tell you the number of times I'll look at stat lines and saw, on the road, Big Ben would throw for 250 yards and 4 interceptions. Versus at home, he'd throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. So Big Ben always performs better at home.
For sure. And if you don't want to touch either passing game, I also think this is a good bounce back spot for James Conner. He did split a little bit of time with Samuel, but most of that came in the fourth quarter when the game was out of hand. So I think he'll get back to his 85% of the backfield touches role. And also like that Steelers defense, they got a good front seven, blitz a lot against that bad Seahawks O-line on the road. So if they can figure out how to cover Lockett, I think the Steelers defense is in play here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think DK Metcalf has a little bit of appeal too. If the Steelers' top corner, his name is escaping me right now.
Aiden.
Yep. If he's out, I think Metcalf has a little bit of appeal.
He does, yeah.
So, moving on. Bills at the Giants.
Got a 43-point total here. It's pretty low, and the Bills are favored on the road by 2, which is a little weird line.
Yeah.
So the Giants wide receivers are dead. You got Sterling Shepard is out with a concussion.
Yeah.
Benny Fowler is a game-time decision with a calf injury, so make sure you're watching those injury reports up till game time.
Yeah, and Golden Tate's still out on his suspension.
Yeah, so I don't know who they're going to throw to besides Ingram. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yep.
And then Shermer, the head coach of the Giants, said he wants to get Barkley more touches after only getting 15 in week 1. Part of that was the blowout, but I think Barkley's a guy we want to target in DFS, especially when nobody wants to play him, because he went nuts last year against the Eagles, and the Eagles had the best run defense in the league.
Yeah.
So I think this is a spot where we want heavy Barkley exposure on DFS, and you're obviously going to play him in season 1.
Yeah, and I think Shermer saw exactly what the rest of the world saw when the Giants played the Cowboys last week. Barkley, in the first play of the game went 59 yards. And then after that, his usage was he was used very sparingly. We saw last year he had nearly 90 receptions. So even in a blowout, he should still be getting closer to 25 touches a game. He's probably the most talented running back in the NFL, and
for sure.
His usage was just not where it needed to be.
Yeah, I think we can project him for 30 touches here, and then when he gets that heavy volume, he only needs to break 1 or 2 to return value for you.
Yep.
And on the other side of the ball, Josh Allen, quarterback of the Bills, is in a big bounce back spot here. Easy for me to say. Versus a very man coverage heavy Giants team. Why does that matter? Because when you got a quarterback who can run, that's better for them, their running ability and running upside. if the opposing team is playing man coverage, because that means the secondary is looking at the player they're covering rather than looking back at the quarterback in his zone.
Yes.
I think it's important also to note that people will look at this game like, well, Dak destroyed this Giants defense, so therefore Josh Allen will too. I don't think Josh Allen's going to put up Dak type numbers here. He's just not. The Bills aren't the same offense as the Cowboys, not as talented. But
right.
There are a few guys to like here. You got John Smokey Brown,
yep.
smoking a cigarette there on the sideline, running a deep route. I think he's always in play because of his deep receiving ability.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Beasley in the slot has got some pretty good production last week. And Zay Jones, if he can get above 50% of the snaps, I think he's also interesting against this bad secondary. But the question is, which one do you pick?
Yeah. I think Brown and Beasley had 65% of the targets from Josh Allen last week. It was a ridiculously high number of his throws going to those two receivers. So I think I'm going Smokey just because of his usage. Right, he was targeted 9 times, 10 times, and came down with 7 of those. And of course, his big playability. I think there's some chemistry forming with him and Josh Allen, and I think he's their best offensive weapon as far as getting the ball down the field.
I agree.
Touchdowns. So, and just kind of as you mentioned on previous shows, Josh Allen does 2 things really well. He scrambles that are good for fantasy. He scrambles and he throws the deep ball. And Smokey Brown is their deep threat. So I think I'm going Smokey from here on out until proven otherwise.
Yeah, got no problem with that.
All right, moving on. The Patriots at the Dolphins.
Oof, this game. So we got a 48-point total, and the Patriots are favored by 18.5 points.
Nice.
18.5 points.
On the road.
Yes. So they even got the 3-point bump, and they're still, 18.5 point home dogs.
Yeah, and now this this opened at a 20-point spread, and it's dropped to 18.5. So people, of course, have been hammering the under, or not the under, but the hammering the Dolphins rather. And so that's brought Vegas's numbers down to 18.5, which I still don't think is a big enough spread.
No, because the Dolphins look like a minor league team out there. You got guys begging to be traded. It doesn't look like there's much hope here.
And they gave Minka Fitzpatrick on Thursday or Friday. They gave him permission to start seeking a trade. So that's it's not looking good for the home team.
No, and you also got their number 1 wide receiver, Albert Wilson, is out with an injury. So the only thing you can really say is Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, the other wide receivers, they got some garbage time sleeper appeal. If the Patriots pull their starters in the third quarter, they could get some run there in the fourth. But that's about all good you can say about this Dolphins team.
Yep.
And then on the Patriots side of the ball, you, of course, have the Antonio Brown drama.
Yes. The saga of Antonio Brown.
Yeah, tired of hearing about it. And so with him playing, this presents an uncertain workload for Josh Gordon. And it is an uncertain workload for Antonio Brown. Has he learned the playbook? How much is he going to play? Who knows?
Right.
So I think from the passing game, the only 2 guys that are viable is Edelman and Dorsett, the other wide receivers. That's the only guys I would touch in the passing game here.
Yep.
Because you just don't know with the other ones.
All right. And if they're winning by 28 points in the second quarter. I think that's what the Baltimore score was with 10 minutes left in the second quarter was 28-0.
Right.
How much more passing is Belichick and Tom Brady going to do?
Right. And then that Patriots defense, in addition to today, they face bad offenses for the next 6 weeks. So they're on the waiver wire, grab them, DFS, play them. So they got good matchups for 6 weeks, and that secondary looks hard to beat. And I think they got a decent enough pass rush where they could do some damage, but we'll see.
Yep.
And just lastly here, we know with Belichick, when they're more than a 10-point favorite, you play his main running back, which is Sony Michel. I know he didn't do well last week, but in wins, he averages 18 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. So you could probably project him for an extra 30, 40 yards and another touchdown here. It's a big blow-up spot for him. Definitely a guy I want in DFS. Definitely a guy I'm starting in season long. What do you think?
Yeah, just like you said, I think this is the bounce back spot for him. He averaged less than 1 yard per carry last week. You got a lot of people already trying to jump off that ship. If he doesn't bounce back here, I think it might be time to bounce off that ship. I don't know. I mean, if you own him in season long, I don't know. Because if he doesn't blow up here, if he doesn't have give you 15 plus fantasy points, it might be time to start looking to ship him off.
Yeah, I agree.
All right,
next game, Chiefs at Raiders. Mitch, take her away.
All right, this game has an implied team total of 52 points. Chiefs are favored by 7.5. 7.5 road favorites. So even with the Raiders getting that 3-point bump, sounds like the Chiefs are going to win this game pretty handily. Tyreek Hill is out. He's out for 6, 7, 8 weeks, something like that. So Hardman and Thomas are going to jump into this. Not the Hill role. Sammy Watkins is taking over the Tyreek Hill role. So Hardman and Thomas are going to get 50-50 split in the Sammy role. So why does that matter? Both of these guys are going to be probably really, really cheap on DFS. They're both going to be worth an ad in your season-long leagues just to kind of see what happens over the next.
Yeah, speculative ad.
Yeah, just kind of see what happens over the next few weeks.
Like you're a prospector mining for gold, you know?
That's right. Hardman is a very talented rookie, but he is a rookie learning Andy Reid's complex system.
And on the road.
On the road. I don't love it here. Sammy Watkins, of course, is in play now because of the fact that he's taking over that Tyreek Hill role.
And he's healthy.
Yeah. So the Lizard King is healthy. The Chiefs beat writer, something else I want to talk about. Right. So you and I talked about when the Chiefs first acquired Shady McCoy.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. We beat it to death as far as Andy Reid not being in love with Damian Williams. But when Shady signed, I was like 90% certain that by week 5, Shady's the starter. And something I wish I had mentioned on the show that you and I talked about, I said if he got more than 25% of the snaps or 10 touches in week 1, lock it in that he is the starter by week 5. What did he get? 29% of the snaps and 11 touches. So my projection was right there, right?
Nice.
So,
bold prediction.
So I'm projecting, and the Chiefs beat writers are projecting a 50-50 split this week between Shady and D-Will. I think Shady's the back to own moving forward because I think that he's going to take over more and more of those reps.
Especially in blowouts. And exactly. The weird thing here, though, is I don't think I want to play either guy this week because the Raiders strangely have a solid run defense at home. They're a sieve on the road, but at home, for some reason, they just do well. So I don't know if this is a spot where I'd play either one of them. So you might not have to make that decision this week.
Yeah, exactly. Also, something to note, David Carr, we know who he is. He lit them up last year, has much better weapons this year going into this game.
That Chiefs defense looks bad.
Yeah, and he looked really good in week 1 against the Broncos. So what do you think about some of his weapons, Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller? What do you think about Josh Jacobs? What do you think about this Oakland offense?
I really like Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller. At DFS, I think they're going to be popular in season-long leagues. This is the week to start them. I don't think you might not get a better shot to start either of them all year in this matchup here because the Chiefs' defense looks terrible in the secondary. Jacobs, I don't think this is the spot for him. The Raiders were playing with a lead all game against the Broncos, so he got a lot of run that way. I don't think they'll be playing with a lead here against the Chiefs.
No.
And if they do, it might be for a drive. So I'd sit Jacobs, start Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller.
Yeah. And of course, Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense is always in play. I think it's important to note that Kelsey has been a Raider killer throughout his career with the Chiefs. So
Yeah,
definitely
8 catches, 100 yards, touchdown average. That's what he averages against his team. That's
insane.
nuts. That's a blow up week for anybody else.
Yeah, right. So just another day at the office for Mr. Travis Kelsey. So anything else on this game?
Let's keep her moving.
All right, Saints of the Rams, take her away.
Got a 54-point total here. This is the highest total on the slate. And the Rams are home favorite by 3, so this is pretty much a pick 'em.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see plenty of offense here, starting with one Mr. Alvin Kamara. It goes without saying to play him because you're obviously going to play him in DFS and season long. But he averages 30 fantasy points a game against the Rams, both in Los Angeles and in New Orleans. So I think this is the guy you need 100% exposure to in DFS. Play him. Just play him.
And we saw what Christian McCaffrey did to him last week. So
wasn't pretty.
Right.
Yeah, it was not pretty. So I don't like Drew Brees on the road, talking about the Saints side of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Thomas is always in play, but you just don't know with the rest of those pass catchers. We've seen that this is a highly concentrated offense in Kamara and Mike Thomas. There was a lot of offseason talk about Jared Cook, and he only ended up playing 65% of the snaps last week and only got 4 or 5 targets. So I don't know. I don't know about the rest of these pass catchers. I suppose you could roll the dice if you needed to.
Yeah, I think Ted Ginn is making a case to kind of keep some of those young guys off the field. He played a pretty high percentage of the snaps last week, 62, 64%, something like that. So you can make a case if you think Ted Ginn's going to pop off and get a 50-yard touchdown reception. You can make. I mean, he's got some flex appeal just based on that, but
right.
If you need him, I guess if you have a couple guys injured or whatever. But.
Yeah, I agree. And on the Rams side of the ball, I'm playing Jared Goff for sure.
Yep.
He averages 30 fantasy points per game at home, and he should explode here in what's looking to be a shootout.
Yep.
The question is, with the Rams wide receivers, who do you start? So if you held a gun to my head, I don't know why you would do that. And it's kind of a bad analogy, but I'm going to go with it. I'd rank the Rams wide receivers Kupp, Cooks, and then Woods. Kupp has the best matchup in the slot against P.J. Williams, who's garbage. Cooks is the deep threat. He might be matched up with Lattimore, but he's shown that he can get deep here. And Woods doesn't really do much against the Saints for whatever reason. So what do you think about Todd Gurley? Any interest here?
Yeah, so you and I have talked about this all week long. I went back and reviewed that Rams at the Panthers game. And Todd Gurley, it looks like, if you just look at the stat sheet, that he was pulled for Malcolm Brown whenever the Rams got in the red zone. That wasn't actually the case. What they were doing was they were trying to limit Gurley's usage early in the season, right? And so it looked like every 7 to 8 snaps they were pulling Gurley out, giving him a breather, and putting Brown in. And so it just happened to be Brown got those red zone touches because it was his turn to be in the game. And so
what had happened was
yeah. So it looked bad if you look at the statistics, but Gurley still had 14 carries for 97 yards. He had a catch. He ran over 20 pass routes. So I'm not freaking out on Gurley just yet. I think here in this spot, the Saints are a pass funnel. So that means they defend against the run very well. They want teams to pass to beat them. And of course, if we think the Saints are going to score a ton of points, that the Rams are going to have to pass to keep up. But I think Gurley does have some appeal just based on the fact that he got 100 yards on.
The price is nice too.
Yeah, and FanDuel he's 7,200. So definitely worth a flyer there. I don't know that I'm going to get there, but he does have a little bit of appeal.
Yeah, for sure. Be sneaky.
All right, moving on. Bears at the Broncos.
Bears at the Broncos, 40.5 point total, probably the lowest one on the slate. Bears are 2.5 point road favorite. Not a whole lot to talk about here. The Broncos offense looked horrible against the lowly Raiders, And worse yet, Lindsey and Freeman are in a 50-50 committee. You can't play either of them while they're 50-50. You got to wait for some guy to get hurt.
Yep. And, this was my concern all offseason. I kept seeing Philip Lindsay being drafted extremely high. This was my exact concern, was Lindsey and Freeman were going to be in a 50-50 timeshare, and that's what it looks like is happening just through week 1 statistics.
Yeah, it sucks. And then the only guy I want to play on the Broncos side is Cortland Sutton because he's a big receiver, and he has some upside here against those smaller Bears corners. That's if Flacco can be standing long enough to get the ball downfield. But you never know in football. Any given Sunday, as they say.
Yeah, and the Bears pass rush, they looked pretty dang impressive against
ferocious.
Yeah, against the Packers last week. So on Thursday Night Football.
Yes, and then on the Bears side of the ball, Coach Nagy said they're going to run a completely different offense, nothing anybody's ever seen before this week, to try to confuse their former defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio.
Oh, so now he's going to overcomplicate. It was already too complicated for Trubisky to run in week 1. Now he's going to overcomplicate it.
Right. Yeah, he's got that big ego playbook. So my question is he overthinking it here? Yes, obviously. Or is this a game where we can expect David Montgomery to be featured heavily? Because if he wants to try something new, might as well use your stud rookie here. What do you think?
Maybe. I don't know.
Bit of projection, yeah.
Yeah, if you're doing it, more power to you. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. Just that usage was so odd in week 1. Mike Davis had 52% of the running back snaps. David Montgomery had 30%, and then you kind of had Cohen lined up all over the field. He was the only running back that was on the field more than 60% of the time.
And when he was on the field, he was playing wide receiver.
Yeah, so so I don't know. I don't know what to do with this running back rotation.
No, me neither. So no thanks. All right, let's keep it moving.
All right, Eagles at the Falcons. This is Sunday Night Football.
Sunday Night Football. You got a 51-point total here. Eagles favored by 2 on the road. Couple injury notes real quick. The Falcons lost their rookie right guard, Chris Lindstrom, their first-round pick, to injured reserve. But the Eagles also lost their starting defensive tackle, Malik Jackson. So I think that probably canceled each other out.
I don't think. I think the Eagles' defensive line is much deeper than the Falcons' offensive line is.
Yeah, probably. They got a deep D-line.
Yeah.
And then just breaking down the offense real quick, I think Ertz and Goddard are in a prime bounce-back spot here against this Falcons cover 3 zone. And I kind of like Sproles, too. That seems to be the way to attack this cover 3 zone, is running backs out of the backfield and tight ends. And then on the Falcons side of offense, I don't think Devonta Freeman or Judge Ito is going to get much of a run game going. Yeah. And with this Eagles secondary looking terrible, bold prediction time.
Bold prediction. You got to do it.
Bold prediction. I think Mount St. Julio erupts here against this porous Eagles secondary. I think Julio goes for 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns here.
Whew.
Mount St. Julio erupts.
Yeah,
in this spot.
That is an eruption. Yeah, that's huge. Jumping back to your previous point real quick, Devonta Freeman and Judge Ito, they split that backfield in week 1 against
50-50.
So I don't know what to do with this backfield. Obviously, if you have Devonta Freeman a season long, you have to play him. But
yeah, these usage things are weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's do some Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football. You got to do it. Monday night. Do it.
Monday Night Football, like Frank Giver used to say. Monday Night Football.
All right, Browns at the Jets.
We got a 45.5 point total. Browns are favored by 2.5 on the road. So a lot of injury news here. Sam Darnold is out. He got mono from making out with somebody, I guess. So
doing the smooching.
He's a little smoochy.
Yep.
I don't know how you get mono as a 25-year-old adult, but hey, we don't judge here on Buy Low Fantasy Sports. We just report the news.
That's right.
So with him out, we got Troy Aikman's darling and professional check-down artist Trevor Siemian taking the helm here. So I'm thinking with Jamison Crowder catching like 14 balls last week, he's got to catch 25 here, don't he?
Yeah.
With all those checkdowns.
I think so, but it's only going to go for 100 yards.
Yeah, 25 catches for 100 yards, like running back numbers. I think that's what Crowder's going to do here.
It's perfect for PPR.
Oof, man. So yeah, this Jets offense is an avoid, even at home. I don't like anything here.
Yeah, and then you have Le'Veon Bell banged up. I think he's going to play. Of course, make sure to watch the injury report, but he's banged up. All right, anything on the Browns offense?
With the Jets are reeling with some defensive injuries too. Their stud defensive tackle, Quinnen Williams, looking like he's going to be out. And C.J. Mosley, their prize free agent signing for Baltimore, might be out. So all these Jets injuries, I'm going to do Chubb, and so I'm going to call it a day.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for Buy Low Fantasy Sports on 1490 News Talk, 107.7 FM. Appreciate you tuning in.
Goodbye.